Do you ever sit down to try to get some work done, do something for your business, and all of a sudden, like you are bombarded with what seems like a bajillion distractions? Your phone's ringing, the doorbell rings, dogs start barking, the kids start running around. Listen, I totally get it, which is exactly why today I'm going to be sharing, and this is going to be a two-part series, 5 ways to minimize distractions. So if you like these kind of videos, be sure that you not only subscribe to my channel, you turn on that bell as well, and you hit the thumbs up. So with that being said, stay tuned. Now, one of the very best ways to minimize distractions is to turn off your notifications. Now, this is not only on your phone, but also on your computer. Now, a lot of the times when I'm sitting down on my computer, it got to a point where I use Google Chrome, and every time like somebody would comment or I would get a Facebook message, like it would start popping up in the upper right hand corner. It was super, super distracting. And so what I did, now I still have a few to turn off, but what I did was I just went into those settings, turned it off, and that way if I was on my desktop, I wouldn't constantly see like those pop-ups out of my peripheral, which is very, very distracting. Now, the same holds true for on your phone. I'm going to recommend that you go into your social media apps, whether it be Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and turn off not only the sound, but also the notifications. So take, for instance, when it comes to Facebook, when I get messages, I don't even see that I have any of those messages in on the app itself. And that's because like I'm not tempted to want to go and check it. When I'm focused on doing something, I can stay, really laser focused on that one particular task to where I'm not trying to bounce back and forth. And listen, temptation's a real thing too. But here's what I can promise. Those messages, those notifications, like they're still going to be there. And I promise you're not going to die if you don't check them right that instant. Now, when it comes to social media, you can either go in, there's 2 ways that you can do it. You can go in through the settings of your phone and just turn off the notifications. You can change it, like I have an iPhone, so I can change it to where it might only show up on my home screen, or I might get like banner notifications. I turn all those off. And now you can also do it through a lot of the apps themselves. I know with Facebook, you can go in, turn off those notifications to where they're not blasting you. So just think about, really be honest with yourself. And if you find that you are constantly being pulled away by those distractions, you're tempted to check it, you're finding to where you're, starting to do something and then you see that message or, that notification pop up and it takes you away from the task that you're doing, then I would just pull the temptation altogether. Make sure your sounds are off, your notifications are off, both on your phone and your desktop. This right here will save you tons of time and allow you to get way more done without constantly having to like break back and forth, teeter back and forth between a bunch of different things. Now, the second way that you can minimize distractions is by creating your own workspace. Now, there was a time where I did not really have any desk. I didn't really have any area. My stuff was just kind of scattered. Just, I had notebooks here or, books here or whatever I was working on. Like I didn't have a dedicated workspace. And what I found was that oftentimes I was easily distracted by everything else that was going on. And so here's what I'm going to recommend. It does not matter how big or how small your workspace is, but create some type of dedicated area in your house that you can go to, sit down and actually get more done to where you're sitting down to produce something and you're minimizing those distractions from where you're constantly having to get up and look for this or look for that. I've been there too. I understand, and it can eat up a lot of extra time. And listen, time is important, okay? Now, I would also recommend that you do not have a TV in this area as well, because that's a huge distraction in and of itself. Now, the third way that you can minimize distractions is to set office hours. Now, I know depending on what season of life you're in, this may or may not be a possibility at this time. But, my little girl, she just started kindergarten this year. So now I have been able to set office hours to where while she's in school, Monday through Friday, like those are my work hours. Now back, last year, the year before that, when she was in preschool, she was only going, 2 days a week, 3 days a week. And so really, those were my office hours. I would make sure that, during the time that she was in preschool, that was when I really focused on sitting down and doing my most important work that was going to move my business forward. And this is what I suggest for you as well. Now, if you have kids, but they're not in school, they're not in preschool, they're not in elementary school, whatever the case may be, and you know that you have a hard time focusing and you find that a lot of the times, like your kids are very distracting, you sit down to do something and it's like, mom, like I've been there like more times than I can count. And if that's where you're at in the season of your life, then you need some big chunks of time to really focus to move you forward. And so with that being said, it might be time to consider bringing in a babysitter, maybe if you've got family around, even if it's just for 2 to 3 times a week for maybe, 2 or 3 hours at a time to where you can really focus without being distracted and having to get up and grab juice boxes and white booties every other minute. And listen, there is no shame in getting help. And as a matter of fact, I highly suggest it. And what's even funnier is before my little girl started kindergarten, this was a big issue. I would sit down to try to do something and it was, mom, I want a juice box, get me this, get me that. And once I actually brought in somebody for a couple of days a week, just for a few hours, she loved it. You know what I mean? Because their sole purpose was, hey, keep her entertained, play with her. And she absolutely loved it. So don't think that like you're being a bad mom just because you need to bring in a little bit of help. The fourth way to minimize distractions so you can get way more done in less time is to not be afraid to say no. Crazy idea, I know. But here's the deal. If you have something that you've got to do, you've got something on your calendar, you've got this mapped out, like this is the time that you need to focus on whatever it is you're focused on in your business, whether it's creating content, whether it be, doing a team training, whatever the case may be. If somebody calls you to do something, don't be afraid to let them know that, you've got other things going on. You definitely don't have to be rude about it, and I definitely wouldn't be rude. But for instance, I have a personal assistant. She is my niece and now she works for me. And, when she first started, she wasn't really telling anybody that she was my assistant. And there were a couple of times where people called wanting them to, wanting her to go out and take them places. And that's when I just told her, hey, these are your office hours. Just let them know. It's okay to let them know, hey, I'm working, I'm not able to do it now, but maybe I can do it later on this afternoon. The truth is you cannot please everybody, okay? So don't be afraid to say no. Have you ever started shooting a video or working on a piece of content and all of a sudden somebody calls and then if you don't answer, they call again and again and again? Well, that is my mother, okay? And so this brings me to the fifth way to minimize distractions, and that is if you know that you get calls from the same person, or maybe it's a few different people on a constant basis, and maybe they're like my mom where if you don't answer, they're going to call you until you do answer. Don't be afraid to let them know your schedule. Or if you're, right before you sit down to do something, just shoot them a quick text message. Or if you don't want to call them, just shoot them a quick text message and say, hey, I'm going to be tied up for the next, however long. So just wanted to let you know, if you need anything, feel free, hit me up after this particular time. But by doing this, I've been able to be a lot more productive and not constantly having to start. When I sit down to do something, I'm able to actually work through it without those interruptions, without those distractions. There you have it. That is part 1. There will be a second part that is going to be launching, giving you 5 more ways to minimize distractions next week. If you got some value from this, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And again, don't forget to subscribe. Now, if you're someone who you find yourself like constantly busy, but really feel like you're never productive, maybe you really don't know, what to focus on, and you've got a lot going on and a lot of different ideas going on in your head, but you really aren't sure which to focus on first, what I would recommend doing is downloading, and I am going to put the link right below in the description box. I created a mom survival guide. This is a 3-step process to really help you become way more productive. There's 3 parts to it. The first part is where we really talk about prioritizing, a lot of different things a lot of different ideas that you have, so that you can know what to focus on first, second, third, and so on. I also show you how to take control of your calendar and sit down and really give you, when it comes to your content, a clear direction. So be sure again to download that. Just go to the link in the description box. It's the Mom's Survival Guide. Just enter your name and email, and then that 20-page PDF will be sent to your inbox completely free. Hope you got some value from today. Feel free to share it out. Sharing is caring, and I will see you back next week. Bye.